Hi, Arlene. Thanks so much for being here with us today, with me today. And I'm so excited to talk with you about your women's health coach certification experience. But first, let's kind of go back in time for a minute and talk about your background, what brought you to integrative women's health and health coaching, and where it all began.
Good morning to you. Nice to meet you officially. My name is Arlene Cavan. I live in San Francisco, California. I have been a physical therapist for over 20 years. And it's been a journey it's been a process of growing, and I guess it continues to evolve. And so my work has been focused on orthopedics, pelvic health. It seems more in the last several years that I have been focusing more on complex chronic type issues. And so that's what has ultimately led me to the IWHI. It was a challenge trying to piecemeal, a plan for my folks who are dealing not just with their physical ailments, but then we're dealing with a lot of broader life issues of burnout and stress and life circumstances. And so the work with women's health coaching has been really neat to tie these so seemingly random, corners of their lives into like a really cohesive, I'm treating one person. I can't turn off that physical ailment and then knowing that they're dealing with a lot of mental emotional type issues outside. This is one person. And so that's what's brought me here to the Institute's curriculum.
Yeah. So when you were originally practicing with kind of only that physical therapy hat on, you kept bumping up against a wall of, well, I know a lot of tools for their physical issues, but there are mental, emotional health issues that, these two play together. You can't really separate the body from the brain, if you will. And so when did you first hear of the Integrative Women's Health Institute?
I would say, it's probably even before I had started my own practice, because I was already finding the challenge in my day-to-day work. And so, there was, you're working on somebody who has chronic issues and you're treating the back, but then, you're hearing the story, the life story behind that. And so part of me is I want to, help you a lot more than just what I'm doing with my hands, what I'm doing even just with my verbal. And so it's, I guess there's already been sort of this curiosity. And so tell me more about what you're eating. Tell me more about, what's going on in that life, your work as a lawyer.
Right.
So, these things just start to open up a bit. And I feel like my clients have been sort of the teachers. They come in, they're being honest and vulnerable. And so, while I'm there as that physical therapist, running joke was that wow, you're more than the physical therapist. I feel like you're now here as that mental therapist. And so, joke aside, oh, that's not my area. But then it just felt a little, again, disconnected to say okay, then, well, good luck with that life relationship issue, that issue with your boss. Goodbye.
Right. When it was impacting their back pain, yeah, for sure.
Pretty much.
So when you thought about transitioning to starting this women's health coach certification, journey, this experience, this actual program, you're like, okay, I know I'm missing some things. I'm missing that mind-body connection. I'm missing some of the tools to integrate that within my realm of this, but were there any hesitations in terms of the time commitment or the financial commitment or things like that?
Certainly. I feel like the time commitment and even the financial commitment felt like the surface stuff, yes, it's definitely going to take it's going to take a shift of my routine to focus on this. But deeper than that, I feel that do you got do you have what it takes to put this out there? And so it's a new venture again, a lot of my clinical PT, outlook was that you better not, don't shake this boat here. You've gotten this far to get it less shaky. And so I think that place of uncertainty and self-doubt, huge is I had to conquer that. And so then, expense and the time just became almost extra excuse. Well, I can't because I've got this other things I needed to not face in my personal.
Right. So while you were thinking like, okay, this is this is going to take some time. This is going to take an investment. You knew even then that underneath that was really just about like, is this something I can do? Do I want to kind of go outside the traditional path? A lot of self-doubt about your own ability to do it. Yeah.
A little bit. And so it's even before I knew like what health coaching was or how that there was a name for this, this work, it just felt like, there's a certain box or a certain path that you needed to kind of like fit in. And so anything that starts to deviate, I'm a rule follower. So I feel like it was already such a leap of my own, like, you can't do this. And so to really hear more and more about like, there is a name for this and there is a language about this. And there are like-minded clinicians who are in seeking, this path, career-wise, life-wise, et cetera. It just felt like, oh my God, where have you been? Like, and again, it needed me to sort of like sip the water a bit and just notice this for myself. And that, I say, was the ultimate, like, how could you not? You're already practicing this in some capacity. And, without calling it coaching, it just felt like a no-brainer at that point.
Right. So in some ways, it's actually safer once you step sort of into this container, because then, you were doing it and feeling kind of wobbly about like, should I be coaching? And am I... is this in my scope of practice? Like all those questions. And now you have this official certification, board certification, what the actual tools are. We have a wide lens on that. So once you got into the program, what were some of the things that you enjoyed most, of the trainings or the accountability or the coaching or the work with the master coaches? What were some of the specifics?
I guess, again, in my sort of rule following, so there's a curriculum. And so I gave myself that nice sort of schedule to follow through and finish it in due time. But I remember hearing this even from the Facebook forums is that, get yourself your triad together because this is going to make this like invaluable. And so I met my first triad partner, in one of the retreats, and we were hitting it off, and I had a separate, that was sort of a separate person in a different retreat. And so we ultimately connected, us three together. And I have to say, like, that has been, I can attest to this invaluable resource of these two fellow physical therapists. We are, we haven't met each other physically, but it just feels so connected, and it personalized it. It was a safe container, even more so for us to gather on a weekly basis. We still are meeting up, though two of us are even done with the program.
That's
and so,
great.
Yeah. And I feel like, we're even kidding around like, all right, so when's the retreat where we're physically going to meet each other? Because I know you ladies soulfully that I like need to get the physical connection. So it's been a really neat experience, not something I could have anticipated. I just heard about it again until I had to like physically experience it, that I find like, oh my God, you really need to find those accountability partners. And then everything else is just like really good, like what adds the cohesiveness. Working with Naja has been wonderful. And, just feeling like I could tap into that Facebook forum, and just like it adds a lot more sort of stick to this whole experience for me.
Yeah, the community factor felt really nourishing for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. So let's talk a little bit about your work life and your business. So you came into this program kind of already having taken a leap from clinical practice to private practice. You started your own business, but you didn't feel like you were really coming at it from a big growth mindset. It was almost just like, okay, I guess I'll start a business. Like, talk about your work journey a little bit.
It's embarrassing, I guess, to consider, but I feel like it's also like, all right, again, until like more than I could read from a book, more than someone could tell me, this will be so great for you. It wasn't until I started to like dabble in the experience. I went into, I opened my own practice I was working for a urologist and doing sort of pelvic health work, and he was retiring. He was, and I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term gig. And so it just felt like reflexive is the best word I could come up with. And so it was a rude awakening of like finding that like, this is how you connect the dots logistically, legally, business wise, financially. Okay. And then it just seemed like, and then, so finding that place of like, where do I find sort of, when I hear fellow entrepreneurs talking about like, this was just my calling and my passion, and I'm blinking going, I think I missed that. And so I felt, again, I felt like I went about it sort of backwards, that in knowing that I wanted to practice in this very integrative way, and then finding the language, finding the curriculum, meeting other practitioners who are doing this, I'm like, oh, that's where I have the gusto now. I have a thirst. I can say I have the passion about this, because I feel like, I needed to find the inspiration in a way that was better than what a book could, Business 101 could tell me.
Yeah.
And again, maybe I needed to sort of gel better my practice, that it wasn't just PT, it was going to be a very integrative, a very connective conversation with my clients, that I say like, okay, this is the product, the service, if I want to call that I'm offering, that felt bigger than what physical therapy title could encompass.
Yeah.
So be it. I went about it backwards and twisted, and I'm definitely in a better spot.
Yeah. And I don't think that it's embarrassing at all. I think it's really important, because a lot of people do this. They're like, okay, I don't really like the situation that I'm in. I'm not exactly sure why, but there's something constraining about it. And I think now you have the language of, I really wanted to practice more in an integrative perspective. I wanted that mind-body connection. I wanted to kind of help women get out of their own way and shift into a growth mindset in the same way that you did. But it is very common for people to just be like, well, I know I don't want this, so I'll just try this. But now you have this structure around it that makes it so much easier for you to actually grow. So have you seen some specifics play out with that new, now that you have this container and you've got language and you've got an accountability group and you've got our whole community and your master coach, Naja, and our weekly calls and our Facebook group, it's like now you have the structure. How has that changed your business from before, when you were doing it before the program?
Yeah, admittedly, I still feel very newly minted as a coach, so I'm still dabbling into that business element of things. But I will say that, yes, this is inspiration from Naja, that she would say, like, do you try this question on your own child? And I was all like, oh my gosh, it works. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not fighting. And so certainly in my personal relationships, and but I will say too that clients who are seeing me for that, straight physical therapy, treatment, this lady comes to mind that, she was coming in despair about like a work thing. And then her body was just in like massive pain and discomfort. And after going through, like, I was asking her these open-ended questions, and I said, well, what is it that you want? And how is it that you want your body to reflect, that deeper? And so at the end of this discussion, we've had a couple, and she's like, you didn't even put your hands on me, and I feel so much better. But not only that, like, she just felt so much empowered with things that she was reminding herself that were like present. Like, these were not things she had to fish out. She absolutely had a lot of her own tools, skills, connections that was going to pull her out of that work, crisis that had come up. And it happened a couple times where she was just like, I feel so much better. And I'm thinking like, we haven't talked about coaching, language, but I mean, that's honestly what got her to where she's at. And I feel super excited for her that, like, she doesn't feel that she has to, come to me for sort of like the bandaging, fact that she has this now, these tools, to leverage her forward and onward in the longer haul. So that was, that was just like, win, oh my God, that for her to see it. And then certainly in, my own personal, I just like, God, there's more to this than even you could have told me, than I could have heard in a lecture.
Right. You have to really practice it to see those changes. And, So even though in a sense you're working in the same practice and on the surface it might look the same, that's hugely different in terms of how you're practicing. So no longer is like trying to fix this woman with all of these issues that you can't really talk about, and it's all on your shoulders. Now you have this tool to be like, okay, let me show you how you already know how to heal. And then I'll integrate with that some nuanced skill set that you have from all these different places, nutrition tools, physical therapy tools. And I feel like it feels lighter for you, that the work is not so hard.
Yes. And I feel like it's truly that partnership, so instead of me sort of leading the stubborn horse to the edge of the water, that it has a certain, we're power walking through, and it's sloppy on this trail, but there's sort of this lightness about it, and there's plenty more humor and ease about it. And so that's what I find is like, wow, this is less energy depleting compared to my traditional PT. Like I'm actually like being goofy, though someone might be in sort of like a serious situation, there's still a space to be like, hey, golly, we're human, or we're just adulting, and we just, let's play. And so it's helped change the dynamic of this relationship with my clients.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And, you've got a pretty extensive experience, long career in physical therapy. And to think that, in this phase of your career, you're actually feeling less energy depleted going to work than you were when you were 10 years younger is really amazing.
Yeah. And I say it's still an active practice because it's still relatively a new skill. And so when I feel super jazzed and like, oh my gosh, you saw like a number of folks and you used to see 3 times this number of people in a day. Like how is it that you're feeling like you've got like that energy reserve to take onward? And again, I think it helps that my clients are like already stepping in like into their own power, about their healing process or how they navigate that. And I just feel like, I feel like there's a better concentration of the work that we do versus me trying to spread myself across, 12 clients, in that day and feeling like it's not enough. I just can't, do enough.
Feel that never enough feeling at this concurrently feeling super depleted. Mm-hmm. It's exhausting.
Certainly. But it feels also like there's again, this concentration. So while I'm seeing less clients, but it just feels like, gosh, we packed so much. Mm-hmm. And the quality, perhaps, again, that it's a joint sort of process. I feel that it somehow, it lightens the load literally on me. And then it feels like a playful sort of collaboration now with my clients. And so when they get jazzed about their situation, like, I just lost my job and I'm laughing, and I'm like, I'm laughing with you, but oh my God, the opportunity, the potential, it's an interesting space, because I feel like a fly on the wall would be like, you guys are off. But there is such a neat sort of like, it's from that really upbeat potential that like, things might be lost, but oh my gosh, now there's space to gain. And that was a really neat, thing for both of us to come to and just be like, oh my God, like the job doesn't define, you've known yourself, talking about my client, but like how now can we sort of fill out that so-called void.
Yeah. So if you were talking to kind of yourself a few years ago, as someone else who's considering this program, who's kind of a burnt out or on the edge of burned out physical therapist in orthopedics or pelvic health, and they have an inkling to practice more from an integrative perspective, but they don't know how. They're worried about, the container around it and the language and the scope of practice. What would you tell them about the benefit of joining the Women's Health Coach certification, and what specifically, why you would do it, why it's so great?
Yeah. I just feel that in my reflection of my experience, I feel like there's a complicity that I fell into that just felt like, you can keep doing what you're doing, but you'll keep being stressed out, burnt out, and isolated. And so can you imagine, or can you sort of like project the space that like there's just so much more sort of like scenery, greenery, you know, potential outside that, but we just, you know, we sort of stay in that sort of tried and true, it's safe, but then out of that safety net is like where sort of that like profound, you know, growing potential can come from. And so, yeah, you know, me from 5 years ago, it's like, do you know that there's like a thing out there, or there's even an institute that actually puts these resources so that, you know, if you want to know what the rules are about things, or you just need that space to even talk to people who are in similar straits, career-wise, life-wise, I feel like, you know, here it is, like, this is, how could you not? Like, it just feels like, again, a no-brainer. And the more that you sort of like find that tribe of fellow, you know, practitioners and, you know, who are in sort of similar life phases, that it just seems like, it just seems like it can't, you know, you can't stay that in that same sort of path. You really, you know, truly need to take yourself out of that. And so that's my reflection in a few directions.
Yeah. Well, and it comes with literally soulful new friends, which is so exciting. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience and the really radical transformation that you've made in your career. I know it feels very new to you now, but, you know, I think you've seen through this reflection that you've really come a long way. Your mindset shift is huge, you know, and I love that you're a part of our community and really embracing our community because you add so much to it. So thank you so much for your energy.
I appreciate you inviting the sharing, because it also just feels like I'm so excited. Who do I tell about this?
Yeah.
It's already in the group. So yeah, I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Arlene. It's been my pleasure to chat with you this morning, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.